Hi guys, welcome. Let's continue to answer more questions about Qi Gong. Okay, it's from Patrick. He says, thank you for your content on YouTube. I really love and appreciate it. And he's got a couple of questions. Thank you. Last episode I answered the first question, so the second question is maybe a silly one. No questions too silly. About the hands. I always thought in Taoist tradition the male is the left hand inside. Dantian is yang, the body is yin, left hand is the male yang, the right hand is the yin. And in Buddhist tradition, male and female has the right hand inside. As in your tradition, obviously you have the right hand inside. Is that maybe for some tradition true, and in other traditions such as yours from the Zhou dynasty is always the right hand inside? That's a good question. I'm not quite sure. Because there's not enough surviving lineages from the Zhou dynasty to really answer that question. You will need a really big survey, and there's about estimate of 500 different sects in Taoism. Most of them are not public. So unless we have the access to survey at least 100 lineages or 200 lineages, we're not going to be able to answer that question. But I can answer why we do it like that, and that's, I think, the best we can do. The left hand on the inside is considered more yang, that's true, and the right hand is considered more yin. When I was doing medical qigong with Professor Zheng Shufeng, it was always the left hand because I'm male towards the dantian, and then the right hand. And then when I did the heaven mount tradition, it flipped it, the opposite. Right hand, and then the left. And this makes perfect sense, considering that one of the major moving sets in the heaven mount lineage is called a snake swallowed the moon, not the sun. And if you look at it from a Taoist point of view, the sun is a lot more yang than the moon. The moon's more yin. So the Taoist tradition, at least in the traditional sense, is fire and water. The original Taoism is more water-based. So it would make perfect sense it's more yin. In fact, in the Tao Te Ching, which is the second oldest scripture of Taoism. People used to think it's the oldest, including me, but in the last 30 years they found an older Taoist scripture called a Nei Yi. You can look it up online. And anyways, in Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu said directly, he said, to quote, know the male but keep to the female. And he went on and on about you should flow and be like water, not fire. So the original Taoism is way more yin than it is yang. Therefore, it makes perfect sense that the right hand goes first. And I hope that answers your question. But anybody that has studied this stuff for a long time, we're just using intuition and common sense, we know balance is the key. So why does Taoism advocate being more yin? And the main reason is, in our daily life, you see people, especially in the rat race, they're overly yang. Forcing. So to balance it out, you have to be more yin. That's the reason why. It doesn't mean Taoism is advocating imbalance. On the contrary. In order to balance someone having more yang, you have to be more yin and then lower your yang, right? So that's the reason why. But more importantly, the idea of the hands and the movements. Like you see people sit, they might sit like this with their hands. They may sit like this with their hands, right? They might sit like this with their hands. They might sit in the prayer position. They might sit in this 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 position, this position. There's so many in this position. All of them serve a different purpose. And if you're in my course in the medical qigong, I'll be showing you all of this and show you exactly how they work. Just merely holding your hands in a certain position is not going to do anything. You have to link it up with certain organs and visualization. And that's the way they were designed. From a doing tradition, which we use as a warm-up when it's necessary. So people fuss over exactly where the hands should be, and for good reason, because, they work. But you have to remember how they were born in the first place. All doing stuff came from non-doing, not the other way around. If you've been sitting for a very, very, very long time, what you will notice that your body will want to move. Or standing for that matter. But it happens more in sitting. When you're sitting for a very long time, usually after about 2 hours, when you're starting to go into the dissolving process, your body has a tendency to want to move, even if it's not physically moving. You will feel like when you're sitting, you want to do this. You want to do this. You want to do this. You feel like stuff is doing 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 this. You feel all sorts of stuff. When these things are happening, they usually feel very, very, very calm, right? The first few months, it might feel very intense, but usually they calm down. But the sensation's there. If you don't resist it and you just kind of chill with it and you just let it happen and enjoy it, when these things are happening, depending on the pattern that is happening, it might be a pulsing pattern. You will notice your hands, without you trying to do it, but want to mimic that. Like for example, if you feel like everything is going to your chest area and you feel like it's getting very, very warm, like it's pulsing, you might or may not, but most people do, you might have a natural urge without you, if you don't suppress yourself. You have a natural urge to put your hand there. You see people do that when they're hurt or when they're expressing gratitude in any culture, even people that don't train. You naturally, when you're sitting, if you don't try to copy something, if you just let yourself be, you'll notice that your hand might just start doing this. It might start doing this. It might start doing all sorts of stuff, your hands. And later on, if you allow yourself to do that, if you do a lot of scholar research or you interview a lot of lineages, you'll realize no matter how unique you think your hands were when you're organically moving them, that they actually belong in some system long before you're born. And what that does is it explains to you how these things were happening organically. That's how they were invented. In fact, you were just basically rediscovering something that was already discovered. And that is the natural process. That being the case, where the hand should be, the top or the bottom, if you practice enough, your body will tell you and your mind will tell you to answer your own question. Should the hand, the yang hand, be here? Or should it be the yin hand? On the days you feel more yang, you will notice you will naturally put your left. On the days you feel way more yin, you will naturally put your right. You will end up answering your question for all these things if you practice correctly. Always remember that all doing came from non-doing, the original, at least in Taoism. So things have to happen organic, including on a hand position. It doesn't mean we shouldn't learn the hand position, the doing practice. Somebody can save you 10 years of work because they'll be like, hey, actually, a few years from now, if you keep practicing, this is going to happen anyway, so we might as well do it now. Sometimes people approach it like that. So I hope that answers the hand position question. All right, next thing. This question is from Wakehill Moves the Lamb Mini 7003. Okay, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I started sitting meditation during 2019, but as a part-timer, I've recently been mostly consistent with my routine this year. Good job. But I have recently tried standing meditation due to your videos. And a recent experience is sometimes when I do, everything falls dark. I don't feel my body. Everything just becomes black. And then I feel a good sensation. But when I blink, I feel my body again. What could be the cause of this? Cool. Good question. Okay. The first thing I want to say is, when people watch my podcast or read my book, I should do this more often. I do it periodically. But don't try to do, you need supervision in the beginning to try to do this by yourself. Maybe take a class. There's a lot of good online resources or in person. I'm sure there's a meditation club in your town. If not, you can do some traveling. But it's good to actually learn from somebody that knows what they're doing. I also have an online program, but just watching a podcast and trying to do it, that could be kind of risky no matter whose podcast it is. Podcasts were not meant to be instructional. I'm just sharing ideas because it's fun to talk about this stuff and it's my passion, right? But I'm not trying to teach in a podcast. That's why I never get up and start doing stuff with you guys. I do that in my classes. Okay, so that's the first disclaimer. Second thing, what could be happening when you're a lot of things can be happening. Unless I know you a lot better, I don't really know for sure. But when you start dissolving and you start losing your spatial awareness and your mirror neurons are not feeling your body, like people have experienced this sometime when they're smoking marijuana, a lot of times when they're smoking psychedelics. It happens a lot when people enter trance during rituals. It happens a lot during meditation. And it happens a lot in flow tank therapy, right? So when the body gets relaxed enough and the mind gets still enough, you start to forget your body. Your nervous system will do that. That's what we mean when we say dissolve the body. If you go past that, eventually what happens is you don't feel your body, but you feel your mind, your personality. And your personality will feel like a field. If you keep going, that will dissolve and you merge. That is the process of merging from ice melting into the ocean. For more information about that, please watch previous episodes, because I talk about this nonstop, because this is the whole goal of uniting with the Tao, right? Now, in the very beginning, when you first forget your body or you dissolve your body, you're saying that you see pitch black. But when you blink, your body comes back. That's perfectly normal. When you don't feel your body and you feel like, oh man, my body's not here. As soon as you open your eyes, you can see form. You can see this table. You can see this cup. Therefore, naturally, of course, your body comes back. So when you're blinking, it triggers that from no form to form. But when you close your eyes, you don't feel your body. All you see is black. I'm going to address that later. But what I want to say is, whenever you don't feel your body, don't just open your eyes and trigger seeing form again. That can shock your nervous system a little bit, especially if you're smoking psychedelics, actually. Not that I know too much about that, but I interview people that specialize in that, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, good to know. But Qigong's the same. If I have my eyes closed and I'm doing standing or sitting, and I start dissolving until I forget my body, if I just open my eyes, take a deep breath, I can right away see form, right? If I do that too quickly, on some days I might shock my body, or at least shock my awareness. So in our tradition, and in most tradition, when you dissolve, when you come back gently. There are grounding exercises for this, and that's one of the reasons why I gave you a disclaimer that when you do stuff like that, it's good to have a teacher to do it properly, and don't just learn from books and podcasts. Okay. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, you saw pure black. When you're dissolving in the body and you see pure black, like a lot of people report in psychedelics and also flow tank therapy, in my opinion, is not that good. In fact, most meditators report the opposite. When they dissolve the body, they see bright light. People report white light. For some reason, I usually see yellow light or golden light, like the Buddhists. But it doesn't really matter. The point is, it's not pitch black for most of us that meditate a lot. That doesn't mean pitch black is bad, but it does mean one simple thing. You did not go through the central channel into this area right here. A lot of culture call it the third eye. If you did, you will see light and you won't see black. But please don't try to do this central channel stuff into the third eye by yourself. Please don't do that. It can trigger hallucination. You can get high and pass out. One student had a severe nosebleed. One guy went into a seizure. So it doesn't happen all the time. I'm not trying to scare you, but it did happen the last 30 years from people I know. So again, please look around, take your time, find a pretty good community and a good teacher, and learn this stuff slowly. Never force anything, and take your time and be patient with yourself. And I hope that answers that question. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments below. I'll probably see it, and I'll get to it on one of the podcasts. All right, guys, that's it for today. Please like, share, subscribe, and also, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, follow the link below in the description for the correct website. Because some of you are emailing my old Kung Fu website and sometimes I don't see the message. So just follow the link below in the description. And my Qigong training program for the lying down, sitting down, and standing Qigong is now 100% launched. Is in the website below. Follow the link in the description. And it's not the same as a lot of the introductory Qigong program that I did a year ago in my old website. That was more like a 4-class introductory program. This year is an ongoing community. We'll do at least 50 classes a year, right? So it's a deep dive, not just warm up like the last program. All right, guys. See you next week. Have a good week.